to revisit, take some tips and tricks, we will have this session available on YouTube as well. So Practical Advice Series is really just for everyone to join us, listen in to experts that will provide their candid feedback, their best practices, and share everything you guys need to know to be proactive in getting today's topic covered, from landing a promotion, which I know is hard, or a dream job or an interview in today's economy. I know the timing is pretty crazy, seeing things on social media and LinkedIn, so I'm very happy that we've been able to bring these experts together to share some of the best practices with you, as well as advise you on how to handle such and certain times, as well as stay proactive in your careers. So without further ado, I want to do quick introductions. You guys know me. I'm the face of Women in Industries. I'm Olga Lykova. I'm the founder of Women in Industries. We've started this network about 10 years ago. We're about to celebrate our big birthday next year. I also lead strategic partnerships at Workspot. So I'm super excited to introduce our speakers today. We are joined by Sylvia Lee, who is the go-to-market recruiter at Grammarly. One fun fact you cannot guess about Sylvia is that she enjoys watching football movies, but does not watch the sport. So whoever's a football fan here, get her to watching 49ers or whichever team you guys are a fan of. Carlin is a senior global recruiter at Monday. When Carlin was a kid, she was a part of the breakdancing crew. And it's funny to think about it now because she thinks she has no rhythm whatsoever. Zaharah McKinney is a career navigation manager at Salesforce. I actually read Zaharah's fun fact. Zaharah published a memoir called Before Each Dawn in June. I should have it on my desk. I'll show it at the end of the panel. But I encourage you guys to go to Amazon and get it. It's pretty amazing and very deep and insightful. I'm also joined by Mina. Mina is a senior manager and a people business partner in Confluent. Mina has a scar on her left arm, and up until the 3rd grade, she thought that everyone had one as well. So everyone, I know we're not in person. Please help me welcome our speakers. They're incredible, and they'll be sharing such insightful information with you guys today. So applause to our speakers. Let's get started. So Sylvia, when you were 5, who did you want to be when you grew up?
Yeah, that was actually a really tough question for me because that was a long time ago. I didn't think back. And I would say probably I wanted to be like my mom. I grew up in a single parent family, so it was just me and my mom for most of our lives together. And she did everything she can to, give me the best life possible. We moved to Hong Kong as well. Coming from Canada, moved to Hong Kong and integrating into a country I've never been before and had to learn the language. When I first moved, I only spoke English and nobody understood me except for the teacher and a very selected group of students. But I was always really happy. I love my childhood and I know my mom did a lot to create that for me. So even to today, I am extremely amazed everything she's done, being parent myself, to be a single parent and raising, a daughter by herself in various circumstances. So I would say thinking back, like the only thing I can think of is that I want to be like my mom.
Awesome. Thank you, Sylvia. Cheers to your mom for raising such an awesome daughter. Mina, over to you.
Yeah. So it's actually a little bit easier for me. I was really into gymnastics growing up. And Amy Chow, she's an Asian American gymnast who was from San Jose, California, which is my hometown, went to Stanford, which is up in Palo Alto, just 20 minutes away. She was part of the Magnificent Seven and was part of a contributing member on the U.S. Gymnastics team, winning their first gold medal as a team. And she was, I was looking her up the other night and didn't realize she's also talented in so many other spaces. So she used to be a competitive diver. She used to be a pianist as well. Now she's a pediatrician. Like, all around wonderful human being. I'm glad that she was my role model growing up, and just to know all the wonderful things that she's also managed to accomplish on top of all of those things.
Awesome. Thank you, Mina. And Za, over to you. Who'd you want to be?
Thank you, Olga. And it's great to hear you all's stories. When I was 5, I had been told by my mother that I was going to be a brain surgeon. So I was a little girl walking around saying that I was going to be a brain surgeon, and I didn't know what a brain surgeon was. But in my household, it was more like, what kind of doctor do you want to be? Growing up, my mom was in the medical field, had aspirations of becoming a nurse, but raised 5 children instead. So, she poured her dreams into me. I don't recall much other than saying I was going to be a brain surgeon, and a desire to help people when I was younger. So, yeah.
I think you definitely lived up to the desire of helping people. You've definitely helped me pick a few things in my career. So thank you, Za. Thanks for sharing. Carlin, over to you. I will mess up your name. Can you say it to me again? How to say it properly?
You got it. It's Carlin.
Okay. Carlin. Okay. Got it.
Yeah. Thank you, Olga, first and foremost, for bringing us all here today. Really excited to just participate in thought leadership with you all. When I was 5, I wanted to be Mia Hamm. I grew up a soccer player all the way up until I graduated college. So she was just a foundational, I think, informal mentorship figure in my life. First and foremost, a force on the field. You could tell she really had fun playing. And she was a consistent player and leader, both on the pitch and in the community, and part of the 99 World Cup team that I think really put women's soccer on the map. So yeah,
Awesome.
I wanted to be just like her.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing, ladies. So dreams do come true for many, but I think our dreams change. And that's the point of today's talk, is to make sure you know how to navigate the changes, know exactly what you want, and define your dream career. And that's what our network is all about, is helping you lead your way to finding what your dream job looks like. And that ebbs and flows, and that changes all the time. You don't have to stick to being a brain surgeon. You can help people in many other ways. You don't have to stick to being a gymnast or a soccer player, but you can still love your career. So I'm very happy you guys shared your dreams and aspirations. Let's dig right into it. So in today's economy, what is your advice on landing a dream interview? Let's start with Mina.
Sure. So I have 2 pieces of advice. One is always leverage your network. And the second one will be to do your own homework. And when I say homework, it's not just looking up the company and, reading through their values, but also don't just reach out to somebody and say, hey, like, if there's an opening at your company, will you let me know? No, do the work, right? Like, you yourself know your own strengths, what you're good at, what your experience is, and you will be the one to be able to say, that role actually sounds like something that I really want to do. And then use that, and then go to your network and say, hey, Carlin, I'm really interested in this very specific role at monday.com. And here's why I think I would be a great fit. I think, especially in this environment, being able to leverage your trusted network who have great connections within the company that they already work in is quite valuable. And it will make you navigating the interview process a little bit easier.
Perfect. Thank you, Mina. Carlin, over to you. What do you think?
Yeah, Mina, you took the words right out of my mouth. I would say, first and foremost, leverage your existing network and expand upon it. And put yourself out there. I think it's a good idea to find people on LinkedIn who are part of the team you're interested in joining. Less so a hiring manager, maybe more so a peer, someone you can tap into for advice and insights about their experience, and then build off of that.
Awesome. I definitely agree with you guys. I think in the outreach, it's harder to do this via email than it's in person, but passion can be felt. And if you're really passionate and you really want something, folks can feel it. So it's definitely don't hesitate to put your trust into your feelings and try to share that in your email. I remember landing my first job at Aptus with Mina. I think we started around the same time. And I remember I was interviewing with like 50 companies at the time. This is 2013. And I just remember in my job description, it was, I want to travel. I want my day to be different day to day. I want to be constantly challenged. And that was exactly the job. So I had no experience, nothing. So landing that job, I just said to the recruiter and the hiring manager, this is my dream job. This is what I want to do. And I will put my all into it to be successful. And when I said that, I think that definitely progressed, especially with leaders that we have on the call. They can feel your passion. They will be rooting for you. They will be rooting for your story and your success. So definitely express that and leverage your network. I think we have a bit more advice from Zah and Sylvia. Zah, do you want to go first? What additional tips and tricks do you guys have for landing a dream interview?
Yeah, I'd first want to acknowledge that if there's anyone who is either listening or rewatching, right, this conversation, that it's a difficult time. And we might have some folks who were job searching unexpectedly. If you happen to be watching and you are in need of help, right? You found yourself like unemployed temporarily, connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm happy to set up a time to look over your resume and do just a job search consultation with you. In addition to the phenomenal advice that everyone has given, I would kind of explicitly let folks know, like everyone know, like your mail person, your doctor, your dentist, everyone should know that you were job searching, right? And I would approach it from a perspective of humility, because you never know, who knows someone else. And then I'd set up a job search committee. And there are 3 sort of essential personas, right? I would have someone who's like the well-connected and gregarious person on your committee. And then someone who's a domain expert who can help you to stay abreast of trends that are happening in your particular industry so that you are not, losing kind of that insider knowledge. And then I would have someone on your committee who can keep you accountable. So we all know that annoying person who is like the time clock person and is like, oh, we were gonna have dinner on Wednesday at 6, so I'll be at your house at 5:45, right? So that is a great person to hold you accountable to your dreams. And, let's not forget about community, because the experience, in tough times can be isolating.
This is really great tips. I definitely need someone to be on my calendar and organizing my brain. So thank you for sharing that. Sylvia, over to you. What do you have for additional tips?
Yeah, I think to add to that, networking is definitely very important. I think you have to have a strategy of how you network. I'm sure there are folks that are listening that maybe they are just starting their career, or they're new to the country where they don't already have an existing network that you can utilize. Is being strategic of who you're reaching out to. You definitely have to do your homework. It's not always just reach out to the recruiter and send a message and just hope they would connect with you, because really, I think Carlin can attest to that. We get quite a few LinkedIn requests. You really have to stand out. And it's not always just a recruiter or the hiring manager, as she has mentioned. Like, peers are very, very helpful, right? It's not just to get yourself known to the peer or to whoever you're networking, but it's also for you to research about that opportunity and about the company to see if it's the right fit for you. So there's a mutual benefit there. And then be creative with your reach out, right? As part of the session, you've learned Mina likes gymnastics and Carlin likes soccer. Maybe in your reach out, you can make a mention of that. And that will actually get probably more attention and more likelihood for them to respond to you and want to connect with you and engage with you. So that's kind of what I would add to, in addition to everything that everyone shared so far.
Perfect. I think you're leading into giving me a softball into the next question. Speaking of starting out in your career, what is your advice for people that are just starting out? What should they do? What should they focus on? Sylvia, since you just brought it up, let's start with you.
I think I was thinking more of the perspective, like just really being open-minded, right? Like personally, I went to school knowing that I want to be in the HR realm, and I really thought I wanted to be an HR generalist because that's what I thought my career path would be. I didn't even realize there were so many different career paths you can take within the HR and the people world until I started working at Salesforce. And I was so mindset that like, oh, I just want to be a generalist. Like that's the path I want to take. But then when the opportunity came up for me to move into more of a recruiting capacity, I was telling myself like, why not? Why not try it and experience it? And if I don't like it, that's fine. At least I know I don't like it, right? And next thing you know, I am still a recruiter, enjoying, and this is my passion. This is what I love to do. And even till today, sorry. And even till today, I'm still learning and exploring like what would my career path be like 5 years from now. So I would say keep an open mind. Don't think like, oh, there's only one goal and one path to get to that goal. Really take advantage of the opportunity that's presented to you.
Thank you. Thanks, Sylvia. Za, over to you.
Yeah, I would say first recognize you are of great value and worth to like every company out there. If you're a recent graduate or someone who is starting out in your career, you bring a fresh perspective, and you also bring knowledge of burgeoning technologies and trends, right? What people don't tell you is that the longer you're in the workforce, yes, the more you become an expert in a particular area, but that also means that there are some things that you're not paying as much attention to, right? So as someone who's starting out in your career, you're super valuable. You're valuable to the people around you. And I would leverage that in co-mentoring relationships. So what I mean by that is like find or let them find you, right? Someone who is more experienced in their career, more senior, right? And really you want the person who identifies your potential and that you can trust. And you're gonna link up with them and teach them about the things that you know that they may not. In exchange, your ask is going to be for mentorship around workplace culture, navigating your career, getting to the next level, understanding, what it means to show up in your particular role, things that you may not be thinking of, right? And in doing so, you'll also have someone who probably has a bit more influence and can advocate for you along the way in your career. So that's where I would start if I, had it to do again.
You're 100% right. It's funny. It's bringing up a recent memory. We had a really cool roundtable with Vint Cerf. For all of you who don't know who that is, it's one of the inventors of the internet. So he's the reason why we could do this today. And one of the things he says is that he's constantly looking for what's new, and he's asking younger people, graduates, on what appeals to them. How do they search for information? So you'd be surprised, the inventor of the internet has TikTok because people told him that's the way to reach the Gen Z generation. So it's 100% accurate. People look for feedback. People look for a way to reach newer audiences, capture attention. So be open to it. You're bringing a ton of value. I 100% would agree with you, Za. Mina, over to you.
Thank you. I think, Za, you touched on find that experienced person, and I'm all about informational interviews. I've been taking a few calls as well for people who are either interested in the company that I work at or just interested in understanding more of what I do as they transition in their careers, maybe potentially, whether it's more to the HR side or specifically to the HR business partner role. One thing that I would also add, I think it's like Sylvia said, be open. I think the more open you are, you start getting these interviews and maybe gets closer to the decision point, you'll start understanding what's most important to you, because that's when the decision has to start getting made, right? I remember not knowing that I wanted to do HR until probably my last semester as a senior in college, and starting to do interviews at companies. And at that point, I was like, okay, I'll go into HR. And I had a really hard time, like, what do I actually want to do in HR, until I was like, okay, I'll get offers for a recruiting coordinator or an office manager. And I'm like, actually, I'm starting to realize the title's important for me. And I think once you start getting to those critical decision-making moments, and hopefully you're better at that than I am. You know, I'm like leading up there, like, oh, offer's gonna come out, but it's an office manager, like maybe not. So hopefully you can spot those sooner. But I think one, it's really important for you to keep an open mind to talk to the people who have those titles that you're interested in. Understand what they actually do, what's important in those roles in their day-to-day, how they work with others. And then from there, hone in on what is it that is actually important to you? What is it that you actually want to do? What kind of impact do you want to drive? And I hope that will bring clarity on what path you want to go towards, as you have such a range of options at the beginning of your career of what you can possibly do.
Thank you, Mina. Carlin, over to you.
Yeah, thanks, Mina. I would say create a loose plan for yourself. And by loose, I mean having the understanding that things might not happen at a specific company or for a specific role, but identifying what you're after will help you centralize your plan of attack. And, well, easier said than done. Be patient with yourself and trust the process. You might not get to where you want to be right away, but if you operate with authenticity and the right intentions, you'll eventually get there. And then for people who are just starting out in their careers, find a company that you can grow with, one that enables career growth and provides different avenues for their employees to gain exposure into different avenues of the business, whether it's through internal mobility, mentorship programs, or professional coaching, but things that can help you expand your professional palette in order to grow.
Great. Thank you, ladies. That was really, really informative. I think another one that would come up, another trend that might come up to address, is navigating gaps in experience or navigating being laid off. What's your advice on handling that conversation? Carlin, let's start with you.
Yeah. I think being honest is the best thing you can do here, alongside being authentic. Approach it with a growth mindset and really lean into everything that you've learned and have taken away from the experience. That's what I would say.
Great. Sylvia?
Yeah, honesty is the best way to go about it. You don't want to avoid it because they're going to find out. So, and that's going to put a negative check on your resume and your candidacy. So, to Carlin's point, like, what did you gain from it? What skills did you hone in on? And think about it like in a different light. I think one of the best story I've ever heard was that there was a stay-at-home mom who decided to return back to work. And they were going for a management role. And she was able to translate how she was managing her household towards skills that she would utilize at the work environment, right? And so think creatively. You're always learning new skills or honing on your skills. So even if you have gap, take advantage of it, take a new course, hone in on a hobby maybe, right? And just be honest with your recruiter or the hiring team of what you were doing at that time.
Perfect. Zaharah, Mina, anything to add? I know our number one trend is honesty and authenticity.
Yeah, I'd also add that it's free to volunteer. And just because you were not employed with an enterprise organization or smaller organization does not mean that you have to stop moving in the direction of your goals or your development, right? We live in the information age. You can YouTube just about anything. Keep growing your skills and look for opportunities to plug in. If you're passionate about, don't stop working, just plug in as you can afford it. And going back to the advice that I gave earlier, just let everyone know. And you'd be surprised in the ways that people will show up for you. And if they can't offer you a job, they might create an opportunity, right, at their organization for you.
Thank you. All
I'll-
right.
I'll
Mina, do you
add
have-
one more thing, Olga, if you
Yeah.
don't mind. Just like take the time off, right? It's a lot to process, and hopefully this has not been a pattern for you, but take the time off, deal with your emotions and your reactions, because that will help you be honest and in a productive way. When you get back into the groove of interviewing, I can tell when people are not in a good headspace, and that won't translate well into an interview. And so make sure you settle, you process, you accept what's happened, and then you're able to move forward in a more positive light. Because how Olga was saying that passion does translate. A lot of other emotions can also translate through video and interviewing. So that would probably be my one other addition to all the great advice that's been shared.
Perfect. Thank you, ladies. On to another one. So if you are in an organization right now, knowing what's going on with the economy, what is the right time to ask for a salary bump or a title promotion? What's your advice on dealing with that for aspirations? Let's start with Zah.
Yeah, my thought is that, as someone who worked in recruiting for many, many years, is that once you get into a job, your leader should know exactly what your career aspirations are. So the person who's hiring you has had the opportunity to be informed of your salary aspirations before you're hired. It's not news to them, right? The recruiter has been informing them along the way. They have probably given input to any negotiations. But it's a great time once you're hired to tell them about your why. Tell them about your pursuits and how you plan to get there, and actually ask them if they'll partner with you for your development. Now, I will say I have had phenomenal leaders who've been on board, like, let's do this. And for me, that has made me to show up. And then sometimes you get people who, their motivations aren't around your own career growth. But I would say just start early on, and it makes it easier. So once promotion time or time for salary negotiations or taking on a new role or greater responsibility happens, it's not a surprise, right? What your desires are financially.
I 100% agree with you. I think also saying it early gets the person invested in your journey. They want to see it through. It's almost like watching your favorite Netflix show. You want to know what happens next, right? And if they succeed, you almost kind of cheer with them and for them, and that you were a part of that entire process versus, oh, I want a title promotion and we get it in a month. It's a very different feeling of being a part of someone's journey. And as a people manager, I know exactly what that feels like. I want to cheer them on. And if you bring it up to me, I don't wake up every day thinking, what does my team want from money or, title promotion? I wake up thinking, how can we be productive and get to what we, commit to the company? So make sure when you're having those one-on-ones with your managers, you kind of reiterate what's important to you, because it might not be at the top of mind of our everyday, but if you bring it up, it will be. And I think I 100% agree with you, Zai. It's also really important to have the right manager, but those tips and tricks can help. Sylvia, over to you. What's your advice?
I think for me is another really good time to bring out that conversation is when you do most companies have an annual review or biannual review, right? To evaluate your skill. Are you meeting your OKRs? and typically career progression conversation would come up as well, a little bit more focus on that versus your one-on-one. So that would be also a really great time to bring that up as well to your manager, and sometime it might be even with your skip level, right? So have a brighter range to your other leaders that you might not have one-on-one exposure with as frequently, and let them know what your path, what kind of path you have envisioned for yourself within the company.
Great. Thank you. Carlin, over to you.
Yeah, well, first, I'm not sure if there ever is a right time to have this conversation, but in any case, it's important to come at it from a place of humility and education. So to Sylvia's point, I'd say it's really important to have an understanding of the feedback and performance review cycle, because that can provide you with a more organic opportunity to approach the topic. And make sure you're having consistent feedback talks with your manager and make it part of your routine. Even if you're not getting feedback proactively, take initiative so that when the time comes to have that conversation, you'll know where you stand in your performance.
Thank you, guys. Mina, anything to add?
Last thing I would add is more tactical. So I love the, like, have the continuous conversations. It should come organically. Employee drives those conversations because managers have a million things that they're thinking about too. So like, take responsibility and initiate those conversations. The right time, I think you can figure that out of like, when's the right time to do it. If you feel like you're reaching those metrics, like, start those conversations. The last thing I would add is, again, tactical. Know what the company's review cycle looks like, right? So some companies have annual, some companies have biannual. And when I talk about review cycles, I'm specifically talking about compensation planning. I would like to think that companies are transparent on when those happen, right? Like, so if your merit or promotion cycle is effective, say, let's just, for the sake of just ease, let's just say it's January 1st is when the effective date of your promotion or your merit increase happens. Subtract 3 months from that, start there. That's like the latest you should start having those conversations with your manager from a tactical standpoint. If you're really trying to target a specific window to have those conversations, that's about the time when managers start doing the physical planning of compensation promotions, talking about calibrating people and their levels. So that's the only thing I would add.
I'm throwing a little curveball here. Do you guys know if there is a certain percentage people should expect on raises? Because that's one question we constantly get. And unfortunately, from the trends I've seen, is that if you want to get anywhere above 10 to 20 higher percent, you have to interview elsewhere. What's the percentage, and what's your advice if someone needs to negotiate more? I know it wasn't on the list, but throwing it out there. Who wants to take it?
I'll answer the first half. I'm not sure if I have an answer for the second half of that question, Olga. And I will caveat this with, every company has a different compensation philosophy. So straight out of the gate, something that I would earmark is anywhere from 8 to 12% is what I typically consider a promotional increase. Now, there's a lot of dependencies around that based off of, right, like where you're located, what your salary ranges are for that job. Are you really low in the range, or are you above the maximum of the range already? And that can really dictate if you're going to get a higher percentage or even a lower percentage than 8% for a promotion. A lot of that, there's, especially with larger companies, there's consideration around equity and fairness. And like, maybe Carly and I are at the same level, or maybe Carly's above me, I'm a level lower, but I'm already making a lot within my level 3 job. So when I get promoted, they might not want me to make as much or more than Carlin if Carlin has more experience and has been in that role longer. So I'm already high, I might only get a 5% increase. I do think the negotiation for promotions internally can get very, very difficult because there's usually a set budget and that budget cannot move. You would have to take from somebody else to give to somebody else to fund those promotions. So I don't know if I have an answer for the best way to negotiate for promotion. I think it would go back to the ongoing conversations about your career progression, and ongoing conversations about your compensation expectations can help set your manager up to better have that feedback conversation with you and setting expectations of where you might land.
No, I think it's really important so people understand the structure. You know, there is a certain budget, and within that budget, that's the room your manager has. It's not that they don't want to give you that money. It's the fact that they're tied into a certain number. So any other advice on if you are asking for more than what's in that budget and how to navigate that? Sylvia, do you want to take a stab?
I think that Mina did a really great job of answering a difficult question, and it's really going to be dependent upon individual companies. I would say that if you were going into the negotiations, be very clear that your KPIs are actually tied to the competencies and metrics for your individual role, and be able to offer a narrative, right, to your leader to advocate on your behalf, because there are set budgets, and in rare cases, there's also, you know, opportunity for your manager to go back and advocate. And your manager may not have everything like super top of mind that you've accomplished, right? Because they are leading a team and their own numbers. So that's what I would add additionally. But again, Mina did a really great job. I'm glad she answered that first.
Thanks, Sylvia, anything to add?
No, not much. I think the last thing I want to add is just, you know, if you are looking for that, like really think about why you're looking for that increase, and don't go job searching solely because you're chasing a compensation number. Like there has to be really some reflection internally, like why are you looking externally and what are those factors? And, you know, if you have a good relationship with your manager, definitely share that with them as well and see what they're able to do, because a good manager will fight for you.
100%. Agreed. So I think that transitions into a question of, you know, a lot of people, when they negotiate offers, they think about monetary compensation, right? Alone. That's kind of defining the value of a job. In your opinion, because you deal with people every day, what else should people be negotiating outside of their salaries and just OTEs? What should be a part of that consideration process? Let's start with Carlin.
Yeah, this one's a bit tricky because I know a lot of organizations might not have flexibility on things like PTO or stipends because they want to do right by the existing employees. That being said, it never hurts to ask about areas of flexibility such as PTO or stipends. The worst that can happen is they say no. I think it's key to just understand the purpose of your motivations, whether it's internal or external, because that will really help you navigate conversations around what's important to you and how it aligns with the opportunity. And to what Sylvia was saying, money is really important, but it might not be everything. So look at opportunities in a way like, what can it do for you long term? If it's a company you can grow with or a product you're passionate about, an impact that you can make, the money will follow.
Yep. Zah, over to you.
So I would say yes, and ask for the kitchen sink. I mean, literally ask for everything. So yeah, it's money. Ask for money and more money. Ask for stock. Ask for more PTO. I mean, unless it's unlimited. Ask for flexibility in your work schedule. Ask for opportunities to travel. Ask for your next promotion in advance, right? If you knock it out of the park and the team is like, you know, we really wanted you, we're so happy, talk to your manager in advance and say, you know, I am looking for growth by this time period, right? I want to be in this role by this time period. Really, the greatest leverage that you have entering any company is before you get there. So I would ask for it all. I would, if you have to go in the office, if you have physical space that's assigned, ask for the office that you want, ask to be on a certain floor. I don't know, ask for subscriptions to workout things, ask for clubs and memberships. I mean, go on competitors' websites and see what kind of benefits they have and ask for them for those too. Now, all that being said, the larger the company, the less likely you're going to have flexibility, because benefits are actually established competitively, and there's someone whose job that is, right? And they go out onto the market and kind of look at what the industry standards are and try to be really competitive, but you never know. Like, if a company really wants you, they're willing to bend on a lot. So do it politely, do it with a smile. Tell them that you researched their competitor and they're offering this, and you want to know if it's something that company offers. You never know. Maybe you'll influence things, but I would say ask for everything you can think of, like literally.
Thank you, Zah.
Mm-hmm.
I would also caveat with, I 1000% agree. It's also caveat to create 3 to 5 non-negotiables, your non-negotiables, because if you're in a situation where you really need a job, you still have to have that as your moral compass, because we all have our non-negotiables, whether it's a number in the salary, whether there's flexibility, whether you want to get up in a year, move to London and work from there. You don't want to exclude that from your dream, but that could be a part of your non-negotiable. And it does not have to be tied into the money. I would say, sit down with yourself and say, here are the 3 things I must have in a job. And yes, I'll be looking, and I won't jump at the first opportunity until I find exactly that fills that. That will give you so much fulfillment and happiness once you reach that. But again, all the other benefits, if you get them, that only is a nice little caveat on top, nice little cherry on top of the cake. Anyone else wants to add what to negotiate? Because I know we threw it a lot in here.
I'll add on sign-on bonus because we didn't talk about that. I wrote down a list of things. I was like, sign-on bonuses, obviously the cash compensation piece, base, maybe they'll throw in a bonus after a year. I don't know. Not everyone has a bonus plan. Potential relocation packages if you want to move from, Atlanta to New Jersey or something like that. Stock options or RSUs, titles or levels for the role that you're applying for, all on the table. And I echo, Olga, your sentiment of have your list of non-negotiables very close. Pet insurance, I love it. And that also means you have to do your homework on what the company offers, right? So yes, really, really good point. And some companies have clawbacks too. So just understand what those parameters are and what you're signing, because it is important that maybe if you quit within a year, they might claw back the whole thing. So, but they've already paid it to you. So then now you're kind of in a pickle of like, oh, how do I find, $10,000 to then pay back to the company? How does that all work and whatnot? But if you ask for something, definitely, yes, read the fine print, know what you're signing on for, and make sure that you store that somewhere in there when you are starting to look for new opportunities.
Perfect. Thanks, guys. Quick reminder to our attendees, you can actually get your questions answered. We'll begin in a few minutes. We'll take some from Q&A. I already saw some submitted, so we'll get those addressed. I think another one that's top of mind for a lot of folks, there is that, perception that you start as an individual contributor and you must become a manager. You must become a people person. I will tell you that from my personal experience, you don't have to do that to make more money. You can actually make more money as an individual contributor. However, if it's a dream of yours, I wanted the ladies on the panel to cover expectations and things to keep in mind when you do switch. So let's start with Carlin.
I haven't made that switch personally, so I can't speak from my own experience, but I do think it's really important to first understand your own motivation in being a manager, because that's foundational to your management style. Aside from that, to maybe help you get to that next step, reach out to respected leaders within your company who can bring value to you. Ask them about books, blogs, podcast recommendations that help them get to where they are as a leader.
Great. Zah, over to you. What do you think?
I think that not every great IC makes a good manager, and that most of the population should stay away from becoming a manager. These are my opinions, not the opinion of my employer. I agree. You know, check your motivation, right? And if becoming a manager is tied to self-glory, it's not the right reason. If you could be the best at your job, the absolute best that your company will ever find, and make a horrible manager because you were very focused on your individual success and not the success of the folks around you, right? I want everyone on the call to kind of take a moment and think about the best leaders you've had, right? And I bet some of the words that come to mind have to do with things like self-awareness and compassion and camaraderie and celebration. And yes, you know, they helped you, they guided you toward what success looks like in terms of KPIs. But really, if we're honest, our best leaders are the folks that we work the hardest for, are invested in us as human beings, right? So if you are considering becoming a manager, do all of us HR folks a favor and do it for the right reasons, because you know, part of my background is in workplace culture and experience, and leaders who are able to build high trust organizations build the best organizations, and leaders who do the opposite tear down organizations. And you know, you not only could be detrimental to someone's individual growth, but it really does harm the company and the team when you're in it for the wrong reasons. So I'll step off my soapbox there.
No, that was incredible. Thank you, Zah. I think that's extremely important to consider. It's not about promoting your personal achievements at that point once you take on other folks to manage. It's about having their best interest in mind while maintaining the company's goal on top of your mind, which is a very delicate balance. I 1000% agree with you. Make sure this is exactly what you want, not because that's the perception of career progression. Sylvia?
Yeah, I think to add to that is really understand what it is to be a manager. What are your responsibilities? Because you have an assumption, but your manager probably shield you from a lot of it, right? So really get a full understanding what it is to be a manager. What will be your day-to-day like? You know, I know a lot of managers, they have to be their own analysts in a sense. They have to be really good with data. They are doing a lot of reporting. They have to have really strong executive presence because they are presenting to the C-suite or the O team, right? Are these things that you're passionate about and motivate you? And secondly, are you somebody that's going to be okay delivering bad news? Because that's typically a manager's job. Not everything is going to be great, rainbow and unicorns. There are also going to be some really tough conversation. Maybe you have a low performer on your team, or maybe somebody, the business isn't doing well, like with current situation, and you are having those tough conversations with your HR partner. Is that something you're going to be able to handle and manage? Or if it's something that once you learn a little bit more about, realizing maybe this isn't the path for you, right? And adding to everyone's point, you have to go into management for the right reason. It's really not there to chase a title. As Olga mentioned, you can make a lot more money as an individual contributor than you can as a manager working less hours. So definitely don't go in thinking you're going to make more money and you're chasing a title and you're looking to add that title on your resume. Really go in for the right reason.
100%. Thank you, ladies. Speaking of tough managers, what's your quick advice on, working with a manager that doesn't seem to support you, but you're trying to get that upward mobility? How do you deal with that? Carlin, do we want to start with you?
Sure. I hope no one ever finds themselves in that situation, but I know it exists. Leverage people of influence who can advocate for you outside of your direct manager. I mentioned earlier, it's important to know the feedback process and who your manager taps into for feedback around your performance. Be vocal about your ambitions to grow so that these mentors and advocates can help you get there instead of just having to rely on your manager.
Great, thank you. Anyone else wants to add?
I think to add to that is also try to figure out why your manager isn't supportive of you. Like, what is it exactly? What is happening there? Is there a reasoning behind it? Because sometimes it is maybe misconception of what you're thinking they're communicating to you. Just have a sit down and get more clarity exactly why are they not supportive of you.
Perfect. We'll take a few questions from the audience. There's one question that came in about how to ask for an informational interview. I know, Zah, you mentioned reaching out. There's a lot of people talking about them, but what's the best process about setting up one? What's your advice? I think, Mina, you and Zah mentioned it, so let's start with Zah.
Yeah, I would lead with the things that you admire about the individual that you're reaching out to. That's what, the advice that I give to individuals that I coach is to start with, I admire. And when you sort of lean into that, you are going to be leaning from a place of authenticity, of curiosity, and it will make it easier for the person who's showing up, for that coffee chat to speak about something that they probably know really well, right? You admire them because they have a certain level of know-how and expertise, or they're just naturally really good at something. So that makes the conversation easier.
Perfect. Thank you, Zah. Mina?
We have totally different styles, so I really appreciate your perspective, Zah. I'm like someone who just goes right in. I'm like, okay, so tell me this. So I love the relationship building piece of that, Zah, and I would if I'm gonna go do one, I'm gonna keep that in mind too. I think from if I think about what would I want to get out of an informational interview if I'm going into it, and then also on the receiving end of the person who's being interviewed. One, I think it's always great to leverage your network, right? I've certainly introduced people from my network to my other network, and let them leverage my connections and let me make the introduction and say, hey, Zah's a great person to connect with. Zah, Olga is someone that I used to work with. Let me make the connection. These are some of the things that she wants to ask you about. And having that middle person help set up that intro, one, is always great. Two, if you're someone who's going into the interview trying to get information, come with a list of questions. And also, we've been hammering this, I think, throughout the entire meeting or this webinar, but the why is so helpful for me to understand. Why are you so interested? Why do you want to go this route? What's motivating you? And then what are the things that you want clarity on? Yes, that really helps too, Zah, sharing your questions in advance if you can. Or again, having your person in the middle, the one who's helping to connect the two hands together, sharing it with them, and these are the things that I want to learn, and having them share some of that ideas up front. I'm someone who likes to know what meeting I'm going into instead of you just throw time on my calendar. I don't know what this is about, who you are. I like the precursors. So I would come prepared with questions, the why, and like prioritize your questions too. You might have 30 questions. Prioritize that down to 5 if you only have half an hour with them.
Thank you, Mina. I think coming prepared is #1 request from anyone trying to support you. It goes both ways for informational interviews and mentors. If you come prepared and with questions, I think you will get the most out of it. So agreed. Carlin and Sylvia, anything to add as we wrap up? No. Okay. We're right on time. We actually will pull together, if you guys have any additional questions, we'll pull together an FAQ post this session and share it in an article. This recording will be available on YouTube, and I'll share with everyone who's registered. This is a closed network of folks, so of course we encourage authentic conversations, and any questions you might throw at us, we will answer. I want to thank our incredible panelists today for joining and answering all of your questions and hopefully providing you guidance to be successful. Good luck, and feel free to reach out to us at any point. We're here to support you. Thank you, guys. Thanks for listening in. We'll see you soon. Bye, everybody.
Thank you all. Bye.
Bye, guys.
Bye, everyone.